I'm very excited to welcome back an amazing handicapper and great friend of the show. You've heard him on many sports radio broadcasts and podcasts across the country. You can find some of his work at vegasinsider.com and majorwager.com. Very happy to bring back Mr. Brian Edwards from Major Wager and Vegas Insider. You can follow Brian at Vegas B Edwards. Brian, dude, 30 days, man. We're about 30 days until a few games, college football. What's been happening?
Oh, not much, man. Great to be on with you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I retired from baseball a while back, so I've been little bored here lately. But I mean, getting my prep in for football and getting ready to turn that into high gear because you're right, it is getting pretty close.
Oh, absolutely. It's sneaking around, retiring from baseball, it's kind of like gives you just more time, I guess, to dive into football. So that works for you, I think, a little bit while you're out there at the pool working on your tan. Just bust out a magazine and read up a little bit. That sounds good. Why not? Summertime, right?
Right?
But man,
Absolutely.
I'm excited, and I know that there's some games on week 0. But right now I am almost done with all my prep. I'm on the Sun Belt right now. The last one, I guess the Pac-2. I still got to do the Pac-2 and a couple independents, but I'm almost done myself. But I did the SEC over the weekend so I could have this fun little show with you and see where we aligned and maybe disaligned. But it's going to be fun. And I always like to start with just some questions. And a general question I have for you is who benefited more from conference realignments? The SEC? I'm not going to bring the ACC in the Big 12 in because it's not about them. It's about the SEC and the Big 10. Who benefited more between those two big conferences?
Oh, okay. I was prepared to answer that question with Utah, K-State, and Oklahoma State because
No,
of
okay,
losing
then.
Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12. But in terms of SEC and Big 10, hmm, I don't know really who benefits SEC wise because it just got tougher, Um,
I guess
Big
from a
Big
team
10,
perspective, I'm going to ask from a conference perspective because they're bringing in money. Um,
right,
they're bringing in strength from a strength and money
right.
perspective. Let's say.
Right. Well, from Texas brings in a lot of money, and SEC already had a little bit of footprint in Texas with A&M, but Texas and Oklahoma, that's a good addition for the SEC. But then at the same time, Big Ten, now you're in the Los Angeles market. Now you're a factor in the Northwest. But I would think the LA market is the biggest thing for them. And but really, I just think it's the like middle tier teams of the Big 12. If we're talking just specific schools, and we're not, I know you're talking conference, but like
Mhm.
now Kansas State and Oklahoma State have great opportunities, to get to the playoff, or at least much better opportunities than they would have had otherwise.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to win that conference, but that's so true. I mean, I guess they benefited from getting rid of them, and I haven't really thought of that. But just between the SEC and the Big Ten, I think the SEC probably benefited a little bit more in power, but the Big Ten probably benefited a little bit more in coverage, for money. I
Right.
just think getting those 4 Western teams really stretches things out for the Big Ten. And I almost feel like maybe the SEC should have attacked a couple of those schools themselves because I think if I really look to the future, they're just going to look for the most money possible and the biggest coverage and TV deals possible. And that's really what it's about. Now, I think the SEC is still ahead of the Big Ten in strength, and most people would agree with that. The Big Ten still, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, you can throw Oregon in there at least for this year. USC's kind of been an afterthought the last 10 years. But as far as strength, the SEC coverage the Big Ten, I think that's probably fair. I still think the SEC is probably going to have the most teams representing in the playoffs. So we'll find that out. obviously, at the end here. But in lieu of all these changes, Brian, are you approaching this season differently from a betting perspective than in the past, or are you still kind of keeping your same process, thoughts, and actions?
Well, I'm always looking for advantageous, spots. And I think with the Big Ten, now you're really getting those with what the four teams from out west are having to do travel wise. And on that note, I think your alma mater um, might have the best situational spot in all of college football this year when they get 2 weeks to prepare for Oregon's trip to Camp Randall, when Oregon is going to be, coming off of that, or actually, it'll be their third trip to the East Coast in a 5 week stretch. And when they're at home to Maryland the week before, Maryland gets 2 weeks to prepare, just as Wisconsin gets 2 weeks to prepare. And mid-November in Madison, I would imagine, will be quite chilly.
I hope it freaking storms, my friend.
I know you do. I
I'll
know
take
you do.
I'll take a cold rain or snowstorm or something mid-November type thing to make it hurt a little bit more when those Ducks get hit. Maybe a little bit of wind to flutter that passing game. But the truth is that it's hard to know what to expect from Wisconsin because Phil Longo is there and he's kind of bringing his version of the air raid in. Yet they still ran the ball like ranking in the 60s. But it's just I mean I don't know what to expect. I think the Tyler Van Dyke thing is a very it's almost like how you might have felt when Graham Mertz came to there. I'm not super excited about Van Dyke. He had a good first year and then a bad couple years. I almost feel like our schools are almost in the same situation. We'll get to Graham Mertz, by the way, since we're doing mostly SEC. But you're right; it's like different preparation for them. For me, for a betting perspective, I have less bets. I peppered a lot of bets before, but I will say that from a season win total perspective, I have less bets, but I'm actually going a little bit more to the a couple long shots that I like, some pizza money here, maybe a half unit here. And the reason that is because I think the transfer portal made things so much up in the air. You don't know who's going to develop well. And I think that it's just going to bring those like other schools that have the longer shots, especially in the group of 5 conferences, to actually have a better chance of getting to the championship game where you can start hedging. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, and and I'm so stoked that now the little guy has such a better, or I mean, we're gonna have at least one of the little guys in there year in and year out now. So yeah, the Boise States of the world, the Memphis Tigers of the world, etc. Yeah. And I mean, look, Boise State during Chris Peterson's tenure was awfully close to getting in there a couple of times. Really close during Kellen Moore's 4-year spectacular run at quarterback in Boise. So yeah, so that I'm looking forward to the little guy being in there and just fired up for the 12-team playoff, just in general. But then look, for us, more games, more bets, more fun.
More fun is what we're talking about. Absolutely. It's going to be more fun, more games, and a better chance to make it. Now, some of those years that Wisconsin was a top 6, top 8 team, they make it in the playoffs. So that's kind of the exciting thing for some of us. But what's the bad thing, Wisconsin, and I've mentioned this many times before in the show, now it's harder for them to get to the Big Ten championship game because it's all spread out. It was like all you had to do is beat Iowa a couple times, and then you're at least have that shot, which they seem to falter most of the time. A couple times they've won, but now they're still going to have to do good, and they're going to have to see Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, USC, Washington, UCLA, if they're ever good again. They're going to have to see those teams a lot more too. So it's going to be certainly interesting. If I'm Indiana, I freaking love it, man. I'm like, yeah, now there's going to be years I'm not going to be facing Ohio State and Penn State. It's great for Rutgers, Indiana, Maryland, those schools that were just in the doldrums, man, in that division. It's so hard to get out of that. So I think it helps teams like that. You can probably relate a little bit to the SEC with some of that as well. But let's
Yeah.
talk some SEC, baby. We'll start, probably with one of the better teams and kind of work our way down. I maybe just briefly hit on every team. We have like what 16 teams now there. We have a lot more teams in the SEC, just like we did in the Big Ten. But let's talk about them briefly and their outlook, how they correspond to their future number, season win total, or anything you want to talk about. Georgia. Georgia's the first one we got to talk about because, they're pretty much number one in everybody's power ratings. They're number one in my power ratings preseason. Why would they be? I thought they were right there with Michigan anyway last year, even though they didn't make the playoffs because of a couple blunders against Alabama. But here we are, and the Georgia Bulldogs have a different schedule. They still have to play a tougher team now in Clemson. But what's your outlook for Georgia?
Yeah, like you, I've got them number one in my power rankings. Obviously, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and obviously some of the best recruiting in the country, if not the best, probably the best.
Mhm.
Right there with Alabama, but probably a little edge to Georgia in the last 4 or 5 years. And yeah, I mean, they're loaded. They bring back 51 Letterman. Their transfer specific additions were ranked 15th nationally, but their recruiting class in the 2024 cycle was number one overall, 5 5 stars, 25 4 stars coming in. I'm not saying Phil Steele's national unit rankings are the end all be all, but if they're remotely close this year, this is how nasty Georgia will be. He's got them number 2 at quarterback, number 9 at running back, 16 at wide receiver, and that's the only position group that is outside of the top 9. Number 1 O line, number 7 D line, number 3 linebacker, number 3 in the secondary, number 3 special teams. They're loaded per usual. Now the schedule will be a lot different. You got to go to Alabama, you got to go to Oxford, you got to go to Austin, um, and but like if there's one bet that I like for Georgia, it's minus 14 or fewer against Clemson in week 1. I think that's an absolute gift, and I mean, I think you can get it. Actually, I haven't looked in a week or so, but I think you get it 13 or 13 and a half. But I think the narrative coming out of week 1, or at least the biggest national narrative coming out of week 1, will be that Dabo Sweeney is an absolute buffoon and a knucklehead for not using the transfer portal like anyone with a brain is doing.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think he should have filled a few holes at least and used it some. He still could
Right.
preach like staying at your college and stuff like that, but he can say, "Look, I understand kids are going to have different circumstances. We're going to be very meager in the transfer portal, so I don't want you guys. We're developing you to be that positional player." Now, we'll see how the transfer portal develops with NIL and everything. I personally think the sitting out a year should be something implemented, but there's also antitrust with that and all kind of, you can just they're so messed up with the laws and how they correlate to this
Right.
stuff. It's just an absolute freaking mess. You can argue anything, but yeah, Jordan number one, were they like 29 or something in returning production? I never see that out of a Georgia team, and that's pretty insane. 75% returns on offense, 61% on defense. I do say they will lose a game because they can. They can lose a game or two, and now they don't have to feel that pressure. They'll probably let down against somebody. It could be at Ole Miss, even though they coming out of Florida the game, they have Ole Miss 7 days later. That's going to be interesting. It could be versus Texas at home. I don't know where that's going to happen. Even at Alabama, right? I have their three
Sure.
possible losses at those three. I don't see them losing any
Yep.
other games.
Right.
But I say
And
they win 10 or 11. My number's 10.5, and I'm actually not worried about their offense. I'm more concerned about their defense than their offense. It's weird to say that.
yeah, and let's be absolutely clear on one thing. Um, Georgia is still Alabama's bitch. They're 1-8 against them the last 9 times. They just got their ass kicked by them last year. And they have to go to Tuscaloosa, where they have not won since Matthew Stafford threw that touchdown pass in overtime in the corner in 2007. And, you know, Georgia can say whatever they want. They're still Alabama's bitch. They're 1-8 against them the last 9 times, and they can certainly lose that game. And like you said, they can lose in Austin or Oxford. And yeah, there's that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we have agreement there. I mean, number one, the power ratings, no worries about that. I mean, Georgia fans can't be mad at that. I have about 27 points better than the average team. That's where I like to start some of them, and they sometimes can move back up. I think they probably finished a little higher last year, but things come together. The next team that I have, believe it or not, to talk about is Texas. I think that Texas, I have Texas higher than Alabama for a few different reasons. I think that Texas, kind of, I probably feel pretty bad about that loss last year. Coming into the playoffs, they were the big favorite. Thank God I was on Washington. I saw something in Washington, and Kalen DeBoer now is in the SEC, as you know. But Texas ranking 36 in returning production, 73% on offense, 61% on defense. Their portal rankings was 4th, and on net 3. I use on net 3 because it's net portal rankings. I like that. They're a nice 1.4 net yards per play. Win totals 10.5. I also have them at about 10.5 wins. I have them about 24.5 points better than the average team, even though they have a medium hard schedule. They just returned so many guys, and obviously Archie Manning is sitting there behind Quinn Ewers, licking his chops, waiting for some time. They did get some good transfers at the skill positions in the wide receivers and everything, and Isaiah Bolden right there from Alabama, Matthew Golden from Houston, and Silas Bolden from Oregon State. I like those guys. Not too worried about the offense. I'm a little bit more worried about the defensive front, but I think this is my second best team right now. I have them in Ohio State really close. So what about you? Any outlook on Texas?
Yeah, so I've got them 4th in my power rankings. I've got Oregon 2, Ohio State 3, and Bama 5. I've got them going 9-0 with 3 swing games, being Oklahoma at A&M, and I skipped over Georgia at home. But I will say one thing. But, I mean, I'm not that high on Arkansas this year, but Arkansas is always up for Texas. If Arkansas is catching double digits there, that's a great spot for Arkansas because they've got 2 weeks to prepare, and Texas doesn't. So that's the kind of tricky spot, but I just don't think Arkansas's got enough firepower to beat them. But I don't think I don't think Michigan's got enough for Texas unless they just like win the turnover battle by 3. If they got to be like +3 in turnover margin, I think to win that, I think the really only legit losables for Texas, barring an insane rash of injuries, obviously, are Oklahoma, Georgia, and at A&M. I mean, I think at A&M, who knows with that rivalry, especially in front of 100,000 and change. And who knows? Maybe Texas will be in a situation where they know they can lose that and still get to the CFP, and therefore maybe are not as focused, etc. So I'm definitely not penciling them in for a W yet in that A&M game. I think most books with the games of the year have them favored by like 4 to 5 in that one. But yeah, Texas is going to be really good, and yep, they're strong everywhere.
All right. Well, and I don't disagree. I think there's no value there. They're favorites to make the playoffs, right?
Right.
So I'm going to go with the next team because I have them tied with Alabama myself. But let's give them a little bit. Let's give Ole Miss a little bump here. For once. I like Ole Miss somewhat this year, and I kind of wish I was a little bit earlier on Jackson Dart for the Heisman. But this team ranking 23rd in returning production. Lane Kiffin just returning some studs, and they rank 3rd once again, just lynching other schools in the transfer portal. 83% on offense, 57% on defense. This defense was better last year. They weren't just like one of those Ole Miss teams that you remember that just would give up a ton of points. They ranked 34th in scoring. So I do like that. This is also season win total is 9.5. I have them at 10 wins. So I think they go over the 9.5. I think their schedule eases up a little bit too. Just their losses, I really don't have any. I have a push at LSU. I have a push against Oklahoma, a push against Georgia, even. I think they're at home against Georgia. It's a tough spot for Georgia. And I have a push at Florida. I'm not seeing, Texas there. I'm not seeing Alabama there. So, I think this is a great year for Ole Miss to make the playoffs and continue Lane Kiffin's little journey there to a possible national championship, Brian.
Yep, we're on absolutely the same page, and I love over 9.5. At last look, FanDuel had it priced minus 115. Actually, I've been filling in my Phil Steele mag with all kind of notes for a month now. It might have been several weeks ago, but yeah, over 9.5. Love that. I've been on Ole Miss's over the last 2 years for winners. Now, obviously, it's a big step up in the number. I believe I know it was 7.5 last year. I want to say it was 7.5 the year before. Maybe it was even 6.5. But anyway, cash both. And number one in the nation transfer specific. Now that's me going by 247 Sports Composite. I'm not sure about on net 3, but I'm glad you pointed that out. I'll check that out. I love what they did in the portal. I mean, they really don't have many weaknesses. Let's see, 1 5-star out of the portal. They've beefed up both sides of the ball in the trenches. I mean, look, they had their best defense in a long time last year. They only gave up 22.5 points per game. They bring back 10 starters, but this is how much talent they added in the portal, is at least by what Phil Steele's got listed as the starters. And I know he talks to at least all the coaches at Power Four and most of all of them in the country. And I'm sure, Kiffin's, confirming a lot of this depth chart he's got. They've got 6 transfers listed as ones when they had a good D last year and are bringing 10 starters back. And, Walter Nolan gives them a lot of beef on the D line. Princely Humilian from Florida. They get Juice Wells, who, if healthy, he was a first-team All-SEC guy 2 years ago, but was injured for South Carolina last year. So, and look, they lost. Obviously, the stud running back Judkins got a big bag from Ohio State, but I loved what they did in the portal at that position. They get Logan Diggs, a 4-star transfer, last year at LSU and previously at Notre Dame. They get Henry Parrish, who's been at Miami the last 2 years, and they get a Miami of Ohio transfer in Rashad Amos, who rushed for 1,075 yards in the MAC last year. I mean, at the receiver position, they're absolutely one of the top 2 or 3 groups. I mean, Trey Harris. Now you add Wells. Jordan Watkins is a guy that's been with them, forever. 53 catches, 741 yards last year, 3 touchdowns. And I think Caden Prescorn is the best tight end in the country. And the schedule works, and it's so I don't know what to call it. Maybe just fortunate for Missouri and Ole Miss, who are both in what are really huge seasons for them, off of big years and bringing a lot back with a chance to have real big time breakout years with the 12-team playoff. Their schedules work. I don't know how they drew such manageable schedules with Texas and Oklahoma added to the mix. But I will say this now. Missouri and Ole Miss, I think, are the only 2 teams in the SEC that if they go 10-2, it's going to be real hairy whether they get into the CFP or not. I think every other SEC team could go 10-2 and feel confident they'll get in the CFP. I do not know about that with Ole Miss and Missouri, because if they lose their 2 toughest games, that means their best wins. I think for Ole Miss, it will be Oklahoma at home. And if it ends up being Missouri and, they lose their 2 toughest, which are probably going to be at Alabama and at A&M, I mean, what would Missouri probably their best win would be against Oklahoma at home, just like Ole Miss. And so I don't know if that, but hey, Kiev, I'm hoping to thread the needle just perfectly. I've got Ole Miss's over 9.5. I want them to go 10-2 and miss the CFP, and then I want the Florida Gators to hire the lane train. So I'm looking to thread the needle perfectly with a 10-2 record for the Rebels.
Well, maybe you will. I don't know. They'd have to throw a lot of money at the lane train to bring them out there, and I'm looking forward to getting to Florida with you here because I have a few ideas about Florida too. But the SEC, I think that what you said about Missouri is so interesting because I think that they could make the playoffs, and I think I might have threw a few bucks on that. I'm trying to look back at some of the bets that I made here, and I didn't see that I gave it out, so I'm kind of scratching my head why I wrote it down here. So we'll get to that. But no, Ole Miss, their defense did improve. They have the fortunate schedule. You have no disagreement from me. But let's move to Bama here. Ole Miss plus 600 to win the SEC championship too. That's interesting. Let's get to Bama. The Bama is, fourth favorite actually behind Ole Miss. So I think I'm kind of right to have them pretty much power rated close or have Ole Miss, edge in them. Now I love Kalen DeBoer. Don't get me wrong. I think it was a fantastic hire, but going from the Pac-12 to the SEC, I think that's a big difference, and I think he's just, going to be filling in some big shoes. And I think it's going to be a little bit tougher hitting the ground running. I'm not a Jalen Milroe guy, really, man. I'm not. I think he's just one of those. I'm not going to say Milton, but not like he's not that flashy Alabama quarterback that can score some points. It feels like Joe Milton a little bit for Tennessee last year in a way. I don't think he scrambles well. He's a big guy. He's a stud runner. I think he's perfect for college football. I don't see a lot of future in him in the pros, but I think this Alabama team doesn't return a lot. And yeah, I know they got some transfers and a few other guys to fill some holes, but I'm under for Bama. I'm under their season win total at 9.5. I think there's definitely losses on this schedule. They only ranked 98th in or 98th in returning production, 64% on offense, only 42 on defense. Their transfer portal rankings was like 66 on net because they lost a lot of guys. They're not upping their NIL money. They're hard schedule. I'm seeing that Georgia could be a loss, even though they said that's their kryptonite. I see at Tennessee a possible loss. I see the Missouri even a possible loss. At LSU is a possible loss. At Oklahoma is a possible loss. And don't forget about Auburn at the end. Auburn's going to play them tough either way. Hell, they could have a hiccup at my Badgers, man. Now, that would be wonderful if that happened for me. But, this just doesn't feel like the same Bama. It's a honeymoon year for DeBoer. They don't return enough guys. I don't like Milroe. I'm going under 9.5.
I hear you. And, that's interesting what you said about the on net 3. So they take into account who you lost to the portal and who you gained, huh?
Yes, that's correct. On
Okay.
3, transfer portal rankings are a really good site.
I like that. I'll have to go check that out. Now, 247 Sports Composite only takes into account who you brought in, your imports via the portal, and they have Alabama ranked number 3 at transfer specific group, but that does not what we're just talking about does not take into account who you lost via the portal, which they did. Isaiah Bond, other key players, etc. And yeah, so when I look at Bama, I mean, I marked them 7-0 with 5 swing games. So like and that was with them winning at Wisconsin. So yeah, they've got a lot of losable games on this schedule. Georgia at Tennessee, Missouri at home, even though they're favored by 8.5 in that, at LSU, at Oklahoma, and that's a difficult spot. Oklahoma has 2 weeks to prepare for Bama, although Bama gets Mercer at home the week before, so they kind of also have an open date. And like you said, you never know. With the Iron Bowl, I believe they're favored in the 13-14 range at most books and games of the year. But look, I get what you're saying about Milroe. He does struggle with the intermediate passes for sure. But Kalen DeBoer likes to do what his quarterbacks do best, and Milroe does throw a good deep ball. It's like if he's throwing like 30 yards or more downfield, he's like great, and if he's throwing 15 yards or less, he's awful. But he can run it, and as long as he's not coughing up fumbles like he did against Michigan to really hurt my bank account. I do like him all in all, but I mean I get what you're saying. He
Well,
will
here's
miss
the
some easy throws.
and I put the rankings up. They lost 2 5 stars, gained no 5 stars. They went 4-4, lost 4 4 stars, gained 4 4 stars, then lost a bunch of 3 stars, like 24 of them in game 9. Now you also have to understand that part of the reason is they're letting some of these guys go is because some of their other recruits stepped up, right? I mean, these guys, you have to kind of read everything together, but still, it's one of those situations where I think there was holes to fill. But this is also Jalen Milroe without Nick Saban and that offense. It's with Kalen DeBoer's offense, which is a little bit of a faster pace offense, kind of like a spread shoot offense. It's different for him, and I'm not sure how capable he's going to be this first year of this offense. I see hiccups everywhere, my man, and so that's my thoughts on that.
Hey, give me that URL again. Is it
I'll,
on?
I'll put it in the chat. I'll put it in the
Right back.
comments here. And
Oh,
so
okay.
for
There you go.
anybody that wants it, it's right there. And yeah, go ahead and grab that. And it's one I've been using. I started using it last year, and I thought that it kind of summed things up pretty good, because you're right. The 24/7 one, who I look at for the smaller, that only does Power 5 for on net, but the 24/7 will show Bama as very well in the transfer portal, and the other one doesn't show it. Now, I don't know how up to date the numbers are. I know OnNet keeps up to date numbers. I feel like the transfer portal for 24/7 doesn't, because you still look at like recruiting classes of guys that aren't even there for some of these teams. So if you want to dig deeper into that, that's up to you. But just going from OnNet, it definitely shows the difference there, which I think is going to factor in. So let's go to the next team, and that is Missouri. Let's talk about the Tigers, Brian. And Missouri, yeah, they were good last year, man. I enjoyed watching this team. I thought that Brady Cook just did a fantastic job. He had to get a lot of those final yards with his legs, but he did. You have Eli Drinkwitz there trying to make a big case to get into the playoffs this year. What's your outlook on Missouri?
Well, like Ole Miss, I'm on their over, which I got in early June at over 9.5 plus 120. Now, anyone that wants to tell me I'm buying high, I'm not going to dispute that. I don't remember what their win total was last year, but I doubt it was more than 6.5. But it's all about the schedule. It is absolutely all about the schedule for me. Like I was saying, Ole Miss and Missouri, I think, are the only SEC teams. If they go 10-2, they could be in trouble. And by the way, I have write-ups on my over pick on Ole Miss and Missouri on Major Wager. They're long. I think it's about 2,500 words on Missouri and around 2,200 words on Ole Miss, talking about why I like these teams to go over. But I mean, you look at Mizzou, like their first 4 games, all at home. 2 G5 teams in Murray State and Buffalo, and then Boston College and Vandy. They should be favored by at least 14 in all 4 of those games, if not 17 or more. And then where they're a 4-point underdog at A&M, or at least they have been at DraftKings for most of the summer, that's a great spot for Missouri. They get 2 weeks to prepare for that game, whereas A&M is going to be coming off that rivalry game with Arkansas in Arlington. And I like Missouri to go into College Station, win that outright. Then they've got at UMass, and then they've got Auburn at home. Auburn does have 2 weeks to prepare, but it is in Columbia, Missouri. And then they go to Alabama. So I think there's a decent chance Missouri could be undefeated going to Alabama, where they're an 8.5-point underdog in most books games of the year. But then they get a great spot, 2 weeks to prepare for Oklahoma, which actually has a layup the week before with a home game against Maine. But look, I mean, when your road games, well, I shouldn't say that, but 2 road games they should be favored in, of course, barring big time injuries, especially to Brady Cook. But at South Carolina and at Mississippi State, I think are wins. I think Arkansas at home is a win. Now, obviously, they're going to miss Cody Schrader, but I thought they did a fantastic job in the portal at the running back position. Nate Noel is a guy with more than 3,000 career rushing yards at App State. In fact, 3,074, 26 career starts. And then Marcus Carroll, man, this guy's a between the tackles beast. I believe he was second in the nation in rushing yards last year, if I'm not mistaken. And now he's a Georgia State Sun Belt competition. But I think they got two quality running backs. Luther Burden, I think it's the best wide receiver in the country. I think Theo Weiss and Dane Key at Kentucky are probably the most underrated receivers in the SEC and beyond. In terms of O-line, Phil Steele's national unit rankings got them ranked number 21 on the O-line. They did lose some defensive talent, and I'm a little concerned there. They also lost their DC, but all in all, the schedule works, and I think they're going to be dynamic offensively. Once again, either 8 or 9 starters back on offense, depending on what magazine you look at. And that was an offense that averaged 32.5 points per game last year. So I'm on Missouri over and Ole Miss over as well.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. Missouri just missing those big names, Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Texas. That's massive. Yeah, sure. At Alabama, fine. I think the problem is at the end, South Carolina, at Mississippi State, they're going to have nothing better to do but spoil somebody's future. And maybe they're going to play a hardcore spoiler here. Arkansas, obviously, at home. But here's the thing. It's 16-1 or 18-1 to win the SEC. I don't like that because you're laying -500-600 with Georgia. Making the playoffs is only +175, but to make the SEC title game at DraftKings is 6-1. So you can bet them just to make the title game at 6-1. I think that's the route that I'm going to go instead. You can even do that and Ole Miss, feel pretty good about it. Ole Miss to make the title game is only +250, but that'll wipe the loss out on the Missouri bet, or you can go a little bit more Ole Miss, so you can manage that a little bit. It's almost kind of like you're just predicting it's not going to be Georgia versus Texas. That's what you're predicting right there. I doubt it's going to be Georgia versus Texas. It's going to be someone versus someone, probably Georgia in there. But I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. And Texas does have a hell of a lot harder schedule than Missouri. This might come out to the very last game. Let's move to LSU then. And LSU is, I was pretty impressed by them against Wisconsin in their title game with Nussmeier. I thought he was pretty good. Now they did lose a lot of guys, especially Neighbors and Brian Thomas. I almost think Brian Thomas was the better receiver. I
mean, Neighbors and Thomas are both really nasty, and they're both going to be really good in the NFL. And they're both great. No need to, I mean, they're both awesome. Period.
The truth about LSU is that their schedule isn't that bad either. The USC and UCLA is kind of weird. But they at least get one on a neutral, and you might even go to that game from what you're talking about. And
not if it's the price that you told me.
Well, we'll see. You hit those tables hard, baby. UCLA is the 4th week, but UCLA is an afterthought. The tough one is Ole Miss, at A&M, Alabama, and at Florida. But I don't see a ton of losses on this schedule. I can see 9 to 9.5 wins. What do you have?
So I marked them 6-0 with 6 swing games, but they are favored by 10 at South Carolina. So I'm going to give them a W there. So let's make that 7-0. And I probably shouldn't just pencil in a W against USC. And the reason I say that is because LSU has lost 4 straight season openers, and I have been on them in the last 3 and lost a small fortune in both those FSU games and the UCLA game back in 2021. Not sure either team's got many players left from those previous coaching regimes, but if LSU does, those guys are looking for revenge. But look, I've got a swing game for Ole Miss. Now, that's a good spot for LSU. They've got 2 weeks to prepare, whereas Ole Miss does not. But now the tricky game for LSU, I might surprise people by saying I've got this as a swing game, is at Arkansas. And I say that because all 4 of the previous meetings between LSU and Arkansas have been decided by exactly 3 points. And the last trip to Fayetteville was a very cold day. LSU won 13-10, but KJ Jefferson was out with a neck injury, and Arkansas definitely wins that game if KJ had been healthy. And Arkansas gets 2 weeks to prepare for that, and LSU is coming off the Ole Miss game and, is possibly still undefeated at that point. Right now, we can say clearly, because LSU's minus 2.5 or 3 against Ole Miss at most books and games of the year, that they are definitely going to be favored in their first 6 games. So obviously they could potentially be 6-0, and going into Arkansas, where they haven't had an easy game with Arkansas in the last 4 years. And look, that Taylon Green kid, we'll talk about him, if we get to Arkansas in a bit. But that guy's dangerous. So look, obviously those 3 October games are all potentially losable. Obviously, Alabama at home is the same. And I know it's when Florida is going through a murderer's row in their last 5 games of the year, but I don't think at Florida is going to be easy for them. I do think they'll beat Oklahoma at home, but it's not a layup. So, I've got 7 games I think LSU is going to win, and then it's 5, where they could go either way. Let's say they go 3-2 in those, then they're going to have an outstanding year. But I don't know that they're going to go 3-2 of those. And the reason why is because that defense was so bad last year, and they got a lot of those guys are back this year. And Kelly did not do as well in the portal as he has been doing, as they've
56. He ranks 56 on that.
Yes. So I mean, they have been like in the top 5 of Transfer Specific. They're ranked 40th at 247 Sports, and that's just who the guys coming in are, not who they lost via the portal. So the defense worries me, but I do like Nuss, and they'll still be okay at wide receiver despite losing the first-round picks, and they're probably going to have the best offensive line in the country, 2 first-round picks at the offensive tackle position.
Well, I think this is another schedule that works out. What's funny is I look at the bottom of these teams, bottom of the SEC, and I'm like feeling sorry for their schedules. But no Georgia, no Texas, no Tennessee, no Missouri, and they both get Bama and Ole Miss at home. It's going to be those weird little road games, like you mentioned, at Arkansas, at A&M, at Florida. It's those games that's going to be bothersome.
Right.
So, and those do get in the way. These could be some good fade spots after they come up with a nice win in a letdown spot. I think this is the letdown schedule. You're just going to have to find them as a dog in some of those locations. So, I think it's a letdown schedule, but I do have them probably going over 9 games. Finally, Tennessee here for the power teams, really. And then we can kind of, I guess Oklahoma, but at Tennessee, you got Nico Iamaleava. I don't even know. It's hard to pronounce his name, kind of like good old Tua, right? I think it's Iamaleava or something. I'm just going to call him Nico, all right?
I learned how to say and spell Tagovailoa and Nui Matalolo and Uiagalelei, but for now, it's still just Nico for me. But in September, when I hear his name called by the announcers a lot, I will get it down pat, and I will be able to spell it. But as for now, it is just Nico.
All right, fair enough. Well, Tennessee, I have them power rated just with LSU at 17 points better than the average team. But, returning production did not rank well on Tennessee, mostly because the quarterback's gone, but 108th, 50% on offense, 47% on defense. Portal rankings 35th, still not like SEC caliber. Net yards per play was huge at 1.5. Win totals 8.5. This is another team that I'm leaning over, and it's just, Hypo's going from not having a good quarterback in Milton to having a pretty good quarterback from what I saw so far with Nico. The problem is that stout defense only returns a few starters, so I am worried about that. They have a really good defensive end there.
Pierce.
Yes, Pierce. Yeah, he's going to be
Pierce.
probably a top 10 pick next year if everything, goes like we assume. But the schedule is decent. And once again, let me say this: no Ole Miss, no Missouri and Texas, at Oklahoma, at Georgia, and home versus Alabama is the rough games. But they do get the bottom part of the SEC, I think. They also have Vanderbilt, Kentucky, UTEP, Florida, if you want to throw them in the bottom. We'll see what you think about them. But Mississippi State's at home, Kentucky's at home. So, I have another team that should get 9 wins this year and be arguing to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the schedule, and really the only game where you see that there'll be a significant underdog is at Georgia. I think they are like a 2-point dog at home to Bama in games of the year, but I could be mistaken on that. I think they're a 3.5-point dog at Oklahoma. They're around a 4 to 5 point favorite against NC State and Charlotte. But I mean, everything else is winnable. I've seen them favored anywhere from 9 to 11 against Florida. But they're still Florida's bitch.
Florida's bitch. I love it. All right, for sake of time, let's kind of do a little bit more rapid fire here. Because there's a lot of SEC teams, and we already went for. I want to talk a little UFC at the end. That's why. So,
sure.
What about Oklahoma? What's your outlook on them, real quick?
Yeah, so I lean under. I haven't played it, but at Auburn, I think it's kind of a toss-up. They're going to be dogs to Texas. I'm going to say they lose that one. I definitely think they lose at Ole Miss. Ole Miss has got 2 weeks to prepare. Oklahoma, will be playing his 3rd conference game in 3 weeks. I think they're going to lose at Missouri, and I think they're going to lose at LSU. But I will concede that I haven't watched a lot of Jackson Arnold. I know he was a 5-star coming out of high school. So I'm going to go. I'm not, saying. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want to have a strong opinion on Oklahoma until I see more of Jackson Arnold in the fire, against live bullets. But I just think the schedule's brutal. I mean, at Auburn, they could lose to Tennessee at home. And hey, Tulane's not going to be easy at home in week 3. Tulane almost beat them in Michael Pratt's debut in 2021. They had the ball in Oklahoma territory, down 5 in the final minute as a 32-point underdog. And although I like Willie Fritz, who went to Houston, I love John Summerall, who came from Troy and is Tulane's new coach.
I have 7.5 wins. I don't like Brett Venables as much as I thought I would when he was hired. I think losing their offense coordinator was big to Mississippi State. Seth Littrell's coming in, who played for the Sooners and was on Bob Stoops' national title team in 2000. He's coming in from North Texas. I think it's just a big downgrade. I think that Jeff Lebby was what they were last year. I don't see a lot of good offense, and that quarterback Jackson Arnold did not play well in the bowl game against Arizona. So
that's kind of what I'm basing it off of, because I didn't think he looked good in that game. That's really the only time that I've seen him play. And let me say one more thing, and then I'll shoot it back your way. I will say I do like their DC hire in Zach Alley, because I watched a lot of Rich Rod in Jacksonville State in those midweek games last year. This guy is Alley, is very young and very aggressive. He brings blitzes all over the place, and I think he will be good for that defense.
Well, it's still Venable's defense.
Sure.
So, I mean, I guess he can add some thoughts to it. But when it comes to a defensive minded coach, I usually look to the offense coordinator. For the offensive minded coach, I look to the defensive coordinator. So, I'm gonna say under 8 lean. I'm gonna lean it, but I'm really close to betting this. I'm gonna dive in a little bit more, and this is A&M is another team with kind of like a honeymoon year with a new coach here, and Mike Elko. He definitely steps up from Duke to Texas A&M, but this is another team that doesn't look that solid on the offense. They always were great recruiting team, but they just go back. I don't think Elko can put it together quick enough. They have a really tough start against Notre Dame. Then McNeese State's almost like a bye, and then at Florida. I mean, it's tough for the Aggies, and I still have them with 8 wins, but I mean that's right around their total anyway.
Yeah, I lean under on this one, and it's nothing against Elko. I mean, I thought what he did at Duke in a 2-year stretch was almost as awesome as what James Franklin did at Vandy in a 3-year stretch. The biggest thing for this team is Connor Wigman's got to stay healthy because he's got a 16-2 career TDI and T ratio, but coming off that season-ending injury in late September. And they lost some guy. I mean, Evan Stewart, that's a huge loss. But their defense should be pretty good. They were pretty good last year. Just didn't get much help from the offense. But I'm an under with A&M. Like you said, the Notre Dame game, week 1's big. I think they're going to lose at Florida, even though they're favored by 4. Like I said, I think they're going to lose at home to Missouri when it's an advantageous spot for the Tigers. Even when they go at South Carolina's got 2 weeks to prepare, and A&M plays LSU the week before. They're -2 at Auburn. They're +4 against Texas. I just think there's a lot of losables out there, and under 8.5. I like this one.
All right, so under 8.5. That's yeah. And I agree with you. Connor Wigman is just a China doll there. They do have a great schedule. No Georgia, no Bama, no Miss. Missouri and LSU's at home, but it's that honeymoon year. And what's really funny and fun, and this story should be bigger right now than I'm hearing, is Riley Leonard, his old quarterback's playing him that first week in Notre Dame. I think that's fun. That's a great story, isn't it?
And I don't know how healthy is Leonard. Do we know he's going to be healthy in week 1? I mean, he did have ankle surgery late spring, so that's another key. I do have A&M winning that game, but we'll see if Riley Leonard is going to be 100% by then.
I do not have A&M winning that game.
Okay.
Just want to throw it out there, but let's talk a little bit about Florida, my friend. And I know you can go on for days on your.
I'm not going to do it. Not going to do that.
And Billy Napier, but all I have to say is a few things. 4.5 is too freaking low. It is, and now I didn't take it yet. I'm going to hunt around a little bit. Man, I'm starting to have more bets than I want to make. But dude, 4.5 is damn right disrespectful. And they rank 24th in returning production. Their recruiting's always there. They're the number 2 team in booster money. I noticed it was I think it was number 2. It was definitely top 5. I was shocked that the Gators had so much booster money. I probably should have talked to you more about that. I mean, no, they were no good last year, minus 0.8 net yards per play, but they ranked 19th on the On3 net portal ratings. 4.5, man. I know their schedule is super hard, but Graham freaking Mertz threw 73% completion. Now, maybe there were some short passes, and maybe he didn't always make the big play, but only 3 interceptions there. I feel like Graham Mertz could be an NFL quarterback with how he looks and how he throws the ball. He could just be not great for college. Maybe one of those that's better than a Jalen Milroe for the NFL itself. That's kind of what I think. If a few of these transfers hit, yeah, I think Florida could be creepy, man. It's sneaking up on people. I think they could get to 6 wins. Now, maybe you're hoping they don't, so Napier can get canned. So, as a fan, I know what you're talking about. I've been in those shoes many times, my man. But I'm going to go over 4.5 at some point. I just don't know when.
Yeah, I mean, a wholly buy low opportunity here. I mean, this is the second year in a row we've had our lowest season win total in program history, and it's understandable. Billy Napier is 7-14 against Power Five opponents during his tenure at Florida. Every move, every decision, and every result has been complete dog shit, and except for one, and I got to call myself out. If I'm gonna call Napier out, I got to call myself out. I was on your show. I was on a bunch of shows last summer talking about what a disgraceful decision it was to bring in Graham Mertz as your starting QB. And Graham Mertz was awesome. Now, there were a lot of short passes, so the completion percentage is maybe a little deceiving. But hey, he should have only had one interception last year. Two of his interceptions hit their guys right on the hands and or the numbers. And he got the season injury against Missouri in what was just probably the best play of his career. He literally ran over two people twice on the play to get the first down on a third, like in 5. And he was so fired up, he got up doing his fist, not even realizing he had broke his collarbone on the play. So Graham Mertz was not Florida's problem last year. I think Florida will be better, but the schedule is brutal. I agree on over 4.5, and I like them +3 or maybe +2.5 against Miami in week 1. And the one spot, and I think it's 6 or anywhere in the 5.5, 6.5 range. When they play LSU at home, they are starving to beat LSU. Have lost some. We've lost 5 in a row against them, and 4 of them were pretty bad heartbreakers.
Yeah, during that stretch, Georgia at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and at Florida State, they're going to get somebody, if not 2 teams during that stretch. I don't know who it's going to be and at what time, but Florida State's also in a lot of questions. I mean, they're supposed to be the best team in the ACC, maybe, but they still are relying on a ton of transfers from. And I don't like DJU that much, to be honest.
Me neither.
So that's a possible win. Ole Miss at home, LSU at home, at Texas is tough, but versus Georgia is always, look, they're gonna win 5 or 6 games. I like this over 4.5. Shop around to find the juice. I mean, it's already -150, whatever. The books don't want you to bet it. That's because of the numbers there. They're showing it out there. But yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, rapid fire, man.
Wait. One last thing on Florida. 17-2 in the last 19 head-to-head meetings against Tennessee. We call Neyland Stadium the Swamp North. Do not just pencil in a guaranteed L when Florida goes at Tennessee on October 12th.
The Swamp North reminds me of Wrigley North up in Milwaukee, my friend. Auburn. I mean, I think I have Auburn actually somewhat improved from last year. I have them 7 wins. I still think their win total is a little too high. I mean, I don't know how a team I think last year they had some weird, they beat like Ole Miss and they lost to New Mexico State. No, they beat Arkansas, they beat Mississippi State, and then they lose to New Mexico State by 10-31. And if you want to talk about Vanderbilt, they're pretty much the New Mexico State from last year. But I have 7 wins for Auburn and Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, I think they're 6-6 or 7-5. They're going to be good at wide receiver. Hugh Freeze is Diego Pavia's bitch. New Mexico State has beaten him in blowouts as heavy underdogs the last 2 years. So I'm going to say 6-6 or 7-5 for Auburn. Can't believe Freeze did not go get a veteran out of the portal to compete with Peyton Thorne at quarterback.
All right, fair enough. Kentucky, I have them at 6.5 wins along with the market, but they do rank 14th in returning production. I wrote down tricky schedule. They had to go to Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. The Louisville game is still a threat at the end, especially with a Jeff Brom Louisville. I know Louisville's their bitch, but that's still Louisville's getting better. New OC Bush Hamden from Boise State will have his work cut out in the SEC, and 5-star Georgia transfer Brock Vandegrift at quarterback. I find it hard to really rank a lot of these transfers. Remember the 5-star out of Georgia that Hunter something that played for Northwestern and couldn't even throw a freaking pass 10 yards. It's just I'm tough. I don't know what to think of Brock Vandegrift, but I don't think it's going to be that good.
Well, no shame in being behind two-time Natty winner Stetson Bennett and Carson Beck, who's going to be a top 10 pick. It's a small sample size, but if you watch what little film there is available, and I'm just talking about doing a Twitter search and go to media, and he's got an absolute cannon. He's got really good receivers. I think Kentucky's going to be pretty good, but like you were saying, like they're not going to win at Ole Miss. They're not going to win at Tennessee when Tennessee's got 2 weeks to prepare and they're playing a fourth game in 4 weeks. They're not going to win at Texas. So I've got them 6-4 with 2 swing games being at Florida and Auburn at home. I'll say they lose at Florida and beat Auburn and go 7-5, but they could sneak up on somebody. Oh, and the fourth loss was going to be Georgia at home.
Yeah.
So I got them going 7-5.
All right. What about Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks? I would almost assume that place would get a lot of Florida alumni playing there, but they're not playing Florida this year. So I mean, I still think the cupboard is bare. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I worry about them at the quarterback position. I mean, Lenoris Sellers is only a 3-star coming out of high school now. Maybe he'll end up being really good. I don't know. I haven't really seen him at all. Is Rocket Sanders going to be healthy? I mean, good get as a transfer from Arkansas, but the win total's 5.5. I like it under. I think this could be a 4-8 team, maybe 5-7, but we'd still be okay with under 5.5.
I also have it at 4.5 wins where I don't see them getting to 5. So I'd be with you on under 5.5. I mean, losing that quarterback, Spencer Rattler, is tough, and he didn't have no time to throw the ball. Imagine what what's his face is going to do. I forgot the name of
Sellers,
right? Sellers. Yeah, I don't know what Lenoris Sellers is going to do. Dowell Loggins continuing at OC there. Ugh. The defense decided to show up a little bit at the end. I will give them credit for a couple wins there. I mean, it was Jacksonville State, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. So it's like, how much credit should I be giving them? But no. Yeah, I mean, this is an under for sure. What about Arkansas? Now, you did say Taylon Green out of transferring out of Boise State there. Now, Arkansas, I'm still not, I'm not convinced. I have them very low power rated for an SEC team, but at the same time, so does a lot of power ratings. I'm just going to look up what 5.8 points better than the average team is what Team Rankings has, and ESPN's FPI has them at 4.6 better. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm at 3. I'm not big on this team until I see it, and I know Taylon Green's decent, but it's a Hogs team that lost a lot of players themselves. What about you?
Well, they did lose 5 one-possession games last year. Taylon Green is a lot bigger guy than I think people realize. He is 6'6", 225. He's got breakaway speed, and Bobby Petrino is the new OC. I love Lucas, the rising sophomore tight end who was really starting to ball when he got that season-ending injury at LSU in October. Andrew Armstrong's a big-time receiver, but you look at the schedule, and I love Sam Pittman, and I hope he wins 6 and gets retained. But I got a feeling we could see Bobby Petrino as the interim head coach late in the year, and if he can pull an upset at home against Texas or at Missouri, maybe they keep him. But I think most likely they go 4-8, and Rhett Lashley at SMU is going to be their next head coach. That's what I would predict. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope Pittman wins 6 because I like Sam Pittman.
I wrote Bobby Petrino comes back to this team with a neck brace and a new motorcycle. The problem is that going through the SEC again, he might need that neck brace and possibly a full body cast this time. Did he get his ass kicked by that girl's boyfriend, or was that a motorcycle?
Yes,
It
was
was
not a
yeah,
motor.
okay.
It was not a motorcycle accident. The rashes on his face was he was being given dirt snuggles or concrete licks. Yeah, he got his ass beat by the fiance.
God, I wish I would have saw that. All right, Mississippi State. I'm low on this team, man. I'm pretty dang
Yes.
low on them. I think they're, starting to get into Vanderbilt culture here. It just has not been good. I'm going to be honest with you. I have them at -2 points worse than the average team. They only rank 116th in returning production. New coach Jeff Lebby comes in from the OC at Oklahoma, but there's no true starters returning. It's just very few. I think there's one. There's zero on offense that was a true starter, I think. Depends what magazine you might look at, but just a couple on defense. I guess you win the easy non-con games. Do you win at ASU? Toledo, probably a win. Eastern Kentucky, probably a win, but I don't see another win in the schedule until they play freaking UMass. Dude, this is a bad team.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if we're being optimistic for them, maybe there's 6 winnable games. Eastern Kentucky at Arizona State, Toledo and Florida at home, Arkansas at home, and UMass at home. So I'm not saying take under 3.5. Well, I'm not saying take over at a -184 price, which is what I see at FanDuel. It's going to be a rough year one for Mr. Jeff Lebby. But season win total is a pass for me. I think if he goes 5-7, he will have done a good job. If he goes 6-6, he might should be in the running. Well, actually, because there are 6 winnable, he shouldn't be in the running for coach of the year. But that would be a very thumbs up to Jeff Lebby if he gets this team to a bowl game.
Now for Vanderbilt, I upgraded them from -9 to -4.5 in my power ratings. Now they return 57 is what they rank, 60% on offense, 69% on defense returning. They're actually 36th in the on-net transfer portal. For them, probably not bad. -1.8 net yards per play was terrible. Their win total is 3. I have Vanderbilt winning 3.5 games. Now, I wrote that it appears Clark Lee is turning Vanderbilt into New Mexico State, as I alluded before. Jerry Kill is there as an analyst, right? You got New Mexico State's offensive coordinator, Tim Beck. He's in. Diego Paiva, like you said, coming on in and beating Auburn the way he does. The dude ran like a 10.5, I hear, in his high school 100-yard dash. So this Diego Paiva is fast. I mean, I liked him, and they won 10 games last year at New Mexico State. And I mean, I almost feel like Vanderbilt is New Mexico State now, kind of like Indiana is James Madison. So I'm like, maybe I should just give them what I would think of New Mexico State with a couple also additions. I think you might see an improved Vanderbilt team.
Diego Pavia is an absolute badass, but he's going to be running for his life. They lost, with the exception of DeRicky Wright and Langston Patterson. I mean, they lost, and Quincy Skinner's a pretty decent wide receiver, but they lost all their best players. All their best players hit the portal. Now, good get with Pavia. They had a few pretty good gets in the portal, but Clark Lee's not going to survive this year. They might win. I mean, they should beat Alcorn State, obviously. They should beat Ball State.
Well, they should beat Georgia State, too.
Sure.
That's 3 wins right there. And then South Carolina is kind of, everything else sucks. I guess at Kentucky is a shot, a small shot, but everything else is a loss. But you just need 4, to go over that number. It's 3, really. It's 3. You can push at 3.
Yeah. FanDuel's got 2.5, but -200 to the over. Look, the only bet I like with these guys is I like Vatek. Anything 14 or fewer is an absolute gift. I'm really high on Virginia. I know we don't have time to talk about it, but I'm real high on Virginia Tech this year.
Yeah, I'm high on Virginia Tech too. I'm not touching that first game. Not on Vanderbilt's side. Virginia Tech, maybe. Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
that's what
well,
I said. I said I like the Hokies. I don't know if I said that
right,
right.
right, right. No,
Oh,
you did.
all
You
right.
did. You
All
were
right.
correct there too, because I think the Hokie. I think power rating wise, I have Virginia Tech at least 17 points better than them. Um, yeah, yeah. I have a good amount better than Vanderbilt. All right. Well, we went an hour 9 minutes. We always go long, but I still have to talk a little UFC. We have to put a few minutes away for that, baby, because this is actually a good event. The
Yeah.
last few events have not been good. Not since UFC 300. UFC 300 was just utter badassness
So
oh
was
my,
299.
yeah, 299 was awesome too. Absolutely. But nothing compares to that middleweight fight with my man. Oh God, I'm losing it. When he fought Gaethje, when he knocked Gaethje out right in the middle of
Oh,
the
Holloway.
ring.
Holloway,
Max
yes, that
Holloway,
was
Max
amazing.
Holloway.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude, that was the best thing I've
that was
seen in a
great.
long time. That was amazing. Well, you got Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards. These guys fought a while ago, and there was an eye poke there. And I remember watching this, and Bilal's big old eye. I remember how he was sitting down and just I thought he was getting his butt kicked personally, and he was getting his butt kicked. Now, don't get me wrong, the dude got better. He's beaten Luke, he's beaten Stephen Thompson. Gilbert Burns, I think, was a pretty good win for him. I think he's kind of hit his peak, but I think Leon Edwards' peak is a level above him. Leon Edwards beating Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, who is an amazing fighter. It's strength of schedule. Leon Edwards. I mean, Leon Edwards. I think is going to win this fight. I just don't know if it's going to be within 5 rounds or not. I think Bilal Muhammad is last, and I do see Leon Edwards going to round 5 the last 4 freaking times. He went to decision, but you have to understand, one was Nate Diaz, one was Kamaru Usman, and one was Colby Covington. I think he might be able to finish Bilal Muhammad. So, I'm trying to, in my mind, put this together. I think he's a parlay piece. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not against Leon Edwards in a parlay, but I must warn folks that I've been on the other side of Bilal. 3 of his last 4 fights and taking L's and backing Wonder Boy, Vicente Luque, and Gilbert Burns. Now, Gilbert Burns threw his shoulder out in round 1, and so we don't really know who would have won that fight if Burns doesn't get hurt. But I mean, I think he got hurt defending a takedown, so maybe you just give Bilal credit for that. But so I'm fine with the parlay with Edwards and Aspinall. I got to do a little more a deep dive on the prelims to maybe find that third parlay piece because but my favorite pick of the night, and this is my favorite pick of any card Tom Aspinall is on until somebody survives round 1. And right now I'm looking at FanDuel. Tom Aspinall to win in round 1 is plus 130 against Curtis Blades in the co-main event. And I also like Aspinall to win by a KO TKO, which you can get at minus 120 at FanDuel.
Ooh,
I don't know that John Jones will survive round 1 with Tom Aspinall. And until somebody
what?
survives round 1 against Tom Aspinall, I'm on Tom Aspinall to win in round 1 every single time he steps into the octagon.
Oh my God! This is kind of like getting into Kamzat Chimaev like area here, dude. I mean, he's really stepped. I mean, he broke his leg against Blades last time. I was
Right.
on Aspinall that fight, and I had a way freaking better number than I
Right.
have now. And
Right.
it's very depressing to lose that because of a broken leg, and now you have to minus 390 is just freaking outrageous, man. It's very disrespectful to Curtis Blades. Now, is Curtis Blades done? I mean, is he just showing up now for paychecks? I don't know. He is kind of, a little bit old in the tooth there, isn't he? Long in the tooth, I'm trying to say.
Well, look, Blades took my money at UFC 300 when I had my Jailton Almeida guy, who I was super duper high on until he wouldn't let go of that takedown and let Blades hit him with like 8 Travis Brown elbows to our guy God, the guy who used to be so juiced up. I don't know why I'm blanking on him. Uh,
Pavlovich.
no, he beat Brock Lesnar with that leg kick to the liver. Oh my God, I cannot believe he's from Amsterdam. Oh my God, he's retired now. I can't believe I can't think of his. The Ream, Overeem, Alistair Overeem.
Oh,
Travis
over. Yeah.
Brown, when Brown beat Overeem with those elbows, that's what Blades did to Almeida. But anyway, back to Aspinall. He has fought 17 times in his career, and only, or let's see, every single one of his wins in his entire career has come in round one, except for Andrei Arlovsky, who lasted a minute 9 into round two. So that's just kind of showing the evidence, if you will, of my thoughts on plus 130 for Aspinall to win in round one.
Yeah, I just the Sergey Pavlovich was finally the guy that kind of was opens up him to the Blades and to the John Jones, I guess, or Volkov type fighters, right? The big guys, the number one in the tier one. I would say I like to put my fighters in tiers. But it's just that Blades has just fought in so much of a better schedule, and now you're sitting. But I mean, if I'm lining this, I'm making Tom about minus 250, minus two. I mean, minus 390 almost makes me want to take Blades at plus 290, just numbers wise.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it, Kiev. It's an L. Don't do that.
All right.
Curtis Blades is not winning this fight, brother. It's not happening. He has no path to victory. He is going to get KO'd inside of 2 minutes.
What about Patty the Batty against King Green?
I think that's a tough handicap in my opinion. Yeah, toss up
Green's
fight in my
favored.
opinion. Yeah, barely.
I used to hate Patty, but I mean, just think he's just way overrated. But the dude got better. He got better. I gotta give him credit. He got better and better since that one fight that he almost dropped. I think that I've seen a lot of good improvement in him.
He better wrestle.
Gordon, I think it was Gordon.
Yeah, Jared.
It was
Yeah,
Gordon.
Jared Gordon.
Yeah, it was Jared Gordon. Yeah,
he bet Patty better wrestle Bobby. I think he'll get pieced up on the feet, but I think Patty can out grapple him and probably got a little more muscle than him in the clinch and all that.
Bobby's got 9 submissions, 11 KOs, 12 decisions, and 9 submissions. Man, I didn't know Bob.
Wow, yeah, that surprises me. Well, he got the submission against Ferguson.
Yeah. He knows how to do it, but he'd rather be on his feet. Yeah, I think back in the day, he used to submit people back in 2012, 13.
Yeah, that shocks me that he's got 9 subs.
This is a good gateway fight. I think this is one I'm just going to enjoy.
Me too.
Because I still. Why would I go against Patty, or why would I bet on Patty now when I've always thought he was a little overrated? Now he steps up and I lose my bet. I would be kicking the crap out of myself after that.
Right.
But at the same time, Bobby Green is a placeholder.
I'm not seeing a over under. I think this fight probably goes to distance, but I'm not seeing a price. Oh wait, here a fight to go. No, I'm not seeing a price.
It's a little early on a Monday.
Right.
Wait. There it is. Over 2.5 minus 180. You're about minus 160 on to go to decision there. Yeah.
Not gonna lay that kind of price. I was hoping it would be around minus 110 or even money or even plus, and then I would think about that. But I'm just gonna enjoy that one, same as you.
What about Christian Leroy Duncan versus RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez? This is close to. I mean, what's funny? Rodriguez is plus 115 here, and Duncan is minus 135. I didn't look much at this yet, but I would lean Rodriguez right now until I dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I would look under there, but I need to do a little more. I mean, I'm familiar with Rodriguez. I would need to study Christian Leroy Duncan a little better before I gave an opinion to your audience.
He gets caught sometimes. He got caught against Bruno Ferreira. His wins are Chitty was a good win, I thought, but I thought Chitty was kind of beating him up until he got caught a little bit. RoboCop's a little bit slow, but he's powerful. I think he's in the same corner as Adesanya. I think they're both Is it Killcliff? At least they were. Christian Leroy Duncan. God, I've seen him. The problem is he's British, and this is going to be a home,
Right.
home field,
Never know with the
home
decision
ring.
there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
are you seeing an over under?
Yeah, it is under. Never mind. I have all of them in the fights that Rodriguez. Yep. 1.5 plus 105. So you don't get much past even money for under 1.5 in this.
Yeah, I would lean under 1.5, but I wouldn't risk much at all.
Yeah, because Duncan has been going into the second round and the third round.
Yeah.
He's beaten a lot of guys in the first that were just garbage, and Rodriguez knocks people out 10, 3 submissions, 2 decisions. He went to the third round with Brad Tavares. I could see this going over possibly too, but I would lean under, but I could see it going over. Well, let's look at the last fight on the main card then. Or the first fight, Arnold Allen versus Giga Chikadze. And Giga is also from Europe and from London, I believe. Giga is a favorite. Oh, no, he's a dog, plus 210. And Arnold Allen is minus 260. I was on Giga for a while. Then he disappointed me by losing to somebody. I have to pull it up. But right now, I have no opinion. And but Giga's got a really fat plus 210 price on him.
Calvin Cater was the one he disappointed you, I'm guessing.
Probably.
Jacatse, I mean, plus 200 is tempting. I think it's
He's from Georgia, by the way. I always want to fix that. He's from Georgia. The flag looks the same. My bad.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's Chikadze or pass. I definitely could not lay that kind of price with Allen, especially coming off back-to-back losses like he is. So I'm not saying I'm definitely going to bet it, but I say Arnold's coming off back-to-back losses. He's coming off decision losses to 2 absolute monsters. So I shouldn't say it in that negative of a fashion. His last loss was to an 18-0 guy, and the other one was to Max Holloway.
Max Holloway. Yeah, that's pretty okay.
So that's okay. It's okay. I did not mean to be so harsh with that assessment, but I still think it's Chikadze. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Chikadze. I mean, here's the thing. I'd be scared to put Allen in my parlay with Edwards. It'd be kind of like, God, I can see Giga doing this one and winning this one. Giga does have more significant strikes landed per minute. He does get taken down a bit, so I think Allen could win that way too, though. But Allen gives up 4 inches to Giga, 5'8" to 6 foot tall, 4 inches of reach. Yeah, man, it's just too big of a price. So maybe Allen by sub. Maybe you can get a prop on that. Giga's only 3 losses is being subbed, and by decision. Subbed once and decision twice. And Allen has 7 KOs, 4 subs, and 8 decisions. So this could also go decision. Okay, probably staying away from it, but it's going to be a wonderful card this weekend, my man.
No doubt. And I look forward to Aspinall getting on that microphone and just saying, John Jones, quit dodging me, you chump. I will sleep you in 3 minutes, youngster. Or not youngster. He's the younger guy. What am I talking about? But Aspinall's going to win in round 1, and then I hope he taunts John Jones is what I hope.
Absolutely. Well, my man, we went a long time. It's been an hour and 23 minutes, but hey, we covered a hell of a lot of SEC, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. Really appreciate you, Brian. Where could our listeners get your wonderful information in place?
Is my Twitter handle on the screen? Maybe not. At Vegas B Edwards, and you can find my content at majorwager.com and my picks at vegasinsider.com. And once football season starts, I'll have my picks up at brianedwardsports.com as well. Enjoyed it as always, Kiev, and thank you for having me.
All right, my man. Well, anytime, and we'll be having you on throughout the football season. Brian, have a wonderful weekend. We'll be texting.
All right, buddy. Thank you.